The wind was strong that night, howling through the dead trees like ghosts crying in the dark. Cole tightened the strap on his jacket, his boots sinking into wet, frozen ground as he walked deeper into the alien forest. He wasn't out here for fun. He had lost 2 power coils from his cargo unit and came to search before the storm hit harder. But then he heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the wind. It was faint but full of pain, a soft cry, almost like a baby or something worse. Cole stopped, his heart beating faster. He waited, holding his breath. And then it came again, a broken, weak whimper, barely a whisper carried by the wind. He moved toward the sound, stepping over roots and pushing aside thorny vines. His flashlight flickered, then steadied, casting a circle of light through the cold fog. Then he saw it, her. A figure huddled near a rock, covered in something that looked like torn cloth and thick leaves. She wasn't alone. 2 small shapes were pressed against her body. Children. Cole realized. She looked up at him, her alien eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Her face was thin, tired, and full of fear. She pulled her children close and bared her teeth like an animal ready to fight. "I'm not here to hurt you," Cole said softly, slowly raising both hands. But she didn't understand his words. Still, she seemed to know his tone. She didn't run, but she didn't trust him either. One of the children coughed a dry, weak cough that made Cole's stomach turn. They were freezing, barely clothed, their skin pale and bruised. No one should be out here like this. Not during this kind of night. He took off his thick coat and slowly laid it on the ground in front of them. The woman flinched, her eyes tracking his every move. Cole backed away and sat on a nearby log, hands still raised. He watched as the children reached out, touching the coat, then pulling it toward themselves. The woman looked at him again, still unsure, still scared, but she did not stop them. Minutes passed, and the storm grew louder. Cole knew they couldn't stay here. "There's a cave not far," he said to himself more than her. "It's dry, safer than this." He stood up slowly and pointed toward the direction. Then he pointed at her, and then at the children. She looked at him for a long time, then slowly, painfully, stood up with the babies in her arms. She didn't say a word, but she followed. The walk was quiet. The only sounds were the wind and the crackling of broken branches under their feet. When they reached the cave, Cole lit a small fire with a spark stick and some dry powder from his belt pack. Warmth filled the small space, chasing away the cold. Little by little, he offered them a heat pack and some water, placing it gently on the ground. Again, he backed away, letting them decide. The children grabbed the water first, drinking like they hadn't had anything in days. The woman took the heat pack and pressed it against her chest to warm the little ones. Then, her eyes met Cole's. Once more, still unsure, still guarded, but no longer afraid. He watched them as they curled up together beside the fire. They were safe, for now, but questions filled his mind. Who was she? Why was she out here, alone with 2 children? What happened to her mate? Her home? The woman didn't speak, not that night, but as the flames danced and the storm howled outside, Cole stayed awake. He kept watch like a silent guardian, eyes fixed on the broken little family that fate had placed in his path. Something in him had changed the moment he heard that cry in the wind. He didn't know what was coming next, but deep inside he knew he wouldn't leave them. Not now, not ever. And in that cold alien cave, a human man and a broken alien mother sat in silence, neither knowing the words to say, but somehow both understanding that this was the beginning of something much bigger than either of them. The fire cracked softly, throwing dancing shadows on the walls of the cave. Outside, the storm raged like a wild beast, but inside, it was calm, almost peaceful. Cole sat close to the entrance, letting the warmth reach his back while keeping an eye on the forest. The alien woman sat across from him, holding both children close under his thick coat. She still hadn't spoken, not a single word, but her eyes, large and full of tired pain, kept watching him. She didn't trust him, not But she didn't fear him the way she had before. Cole took off his pack and quietly pulled out a protein bar. He unwrapped it and slowly placed it on a flat stone between them. Then he pushed it forward, little by little, not getting too close. He didn't say anything, just waited. The children were the first to react. The older one, maybe 5 or 6, crawled closer and sniffed it. Then he looked up at his mother, eyes asking permission. She gave a small nod, weak and uncertain. The child took the bar and tore a small piece for his younger sibling before eating the rest. Cole smiled faintly, not moving, not speaking. He knew they were still testing him, still unsure. But food, warmth, and silence could say more than words. Sometimes after some time, the woman shifted, adjusting the children in her arms. Her movements were stiff. One of her legs was injured, swollen and bruised. Cole noticed and opened a small medical pouch from his belt. He slowly pulled out a wound patch and held it up for her to see. She looked at it, then at him, and for the first time she spoke. Her voice was soft and dry, cracked from thirst, and cold. "No touch," she whispered, her accent thick but clear. Cole gave a small nod and placed the patch on the ground near her. He backed away again, letting her decide. After a long pause, she leaned forward, grabbed the patch and pressed it against her leg. She winced but made no sound. Cole watched. Her strength thin, tired, alone but unbroken. The little one fell asleep first, curled up like a baby animal. The older child stayed awake, staring at Cole with curious eyes. "Name?" the child said suddenly, pointing a tiny finger. Cole blinked, surprised, then smiled. "Cole," he said, pointing to himself. "I'm Cole." The child looked at his mother, then back at him. "Cole," he repeated, mispronouncing it gently. Cole chuckled. Close enough, he thought. The woman stared at him, this time longer, deeper. She said something in her own language, a short sentence, then repeated in broken English. "Sorry," she said, pointing at herself. Cole nodded. "Sorry," he said with care. "Nice to meet you." She didn't smile, but her face softened, just a little. The hours passed, and the fire grew smaller. Cole added more wood, trying to make it last through the night. He knew they couldn't stay here long. This cave was just a shelter, not a home. "You got family, Sari?" he asked gently. She didn't answer, but her eyes darkened, and her grip on the children tightened. That was answer enough. They were all she had. No clan, no partner, no tribe, and from the look in her eyes, she hadn't expected to survive the storm. But now here they were, 3 lost souls, and one stranger who refused to walk away. Cole looked at the sleeping children, and then at Sari. "You need help," he said softly. "I can take you somewhere safe." She tilted her head, not understanding everything. He pointed at the children, then at the fire, then made a walking motion with his fingers. Her eyes narrowed, trying to read his face. She shook her head. "People." "Bad," she said slowly, voice shaking. Cole understood. She had been hunted, cast out, maybe even hurt by those she once trusted. "I'm not like them," Cole said, placing a hand on his chest. "I won't let anyone hurt you." Sari didn't answer, but she looked at him long, as if weighing the truth behind his words. She didn't nod, but she didn't look away either, and in that small silence, something unspoken passed between them. Not full trust, not yet, but the first crack in the wall she had built around herself. Cole knew this wasn't just a rescue. This was the beginning of something strange, heavy, and full of meaning. He had only come to find spare parts, but now he had found something else. A family with no place to go. And maybe, just maybe, a reason to stay. The sun had barely risen when Cole carried the older child on his back and led Sari through the trees. The smaller child was wrapped in a heat blanket and held close to her chest. Their steps were slow, careful, and quiet. Sari didn't ask where they were going, and Cole didn't say much. But both of them knew the cave was not safe anymore. Not with supplies running low and another cold front coming. They reached the outskirts of the human mining village, just as the sky turned gray. Cole led them around the outer perimeter, where Abandoned sheds and rusted tools were scattered like forgotten bones. One small building, a storage shed Cole rarely used, had no cameras or guards nearby. He opened the door, cleared out old crates, and laid out some blankets and food inside. "You stay here," he said gently. "No one comes here." Sari looked around, nervous but grateful. The children were already nibbling on food, their eyes wide but no longer full of fear. Cole had no plan, no legal permission, and no one to back him up. But when he looked at them, Sari and the children, he felt a weight in his chest. Not fear, not doubt, but something heavier, responsibility, maybe, or something even stronger. For 3 days, Cole brought food, water, and medicine quietly at night. He cleaned the shed, made it warm, and taught the older child simple words like food, warm, and safe. He didn't tell anyone, not even his supervisor, but in a place this small, secrets didn't stay quiet for long. It started with whispers. A shopkeeper noticed extra rations going missing from Cole's account. A neighbor saw movement near the abandoned shed. Then someone said they saw Cole leading a creature into the forest a few nights ago. On the 4th day, a knock came at Cole's door. It was Bren, his old friend and the village's only security officer. "You hiding something, Cole?" Bren asked, not smiling. Cole stood still for a moment, then shook his head. "Just fixing up the shed," he said calmly. "I found some wild tracks near it. Wanted to keep the place clean." Bren didn't push, but his eyes stayed sharp. "Just be careful," he warned. "People around here, they don't forget things they fear." That night, Cole returned to the shed with extra food and a small book for the kids. Sari was waiting near the door, her arms crossed, her face more alert than before. She had heard something, felt something. "People coming?" she asked in a low voice. Cole nodded slowly. "Soon," he replied. "But I won't let them find you." Sari didn't thank him, not in words, but she stepped aside and let him inside the shed without hesitation this time. Later that night, the older child climbed onto Cole's lap, holding the picture book he had brought. He pointed at a drawn tree and said, "Tree," then looked up proudly. Cole smiled, gently repeating the word with him. Sari watched them, her arms around the younger one, her expression unreadable. "Why?" she asked suddenly. "Why help?" Cole looked at her, the firelight making her face glow softly. "I saw you," he said slowly. "You were ready to die, but you held on for them." He glanced at the children. "That's more courage than I've seen in any soldier." Sari blinked, surprised. She had been called many things before: traitor, worthless, unfit, but never brave. She looked down at her children, and then back at Cole. "They need someone," she whispered. "I try, but—" Her voice trailed off, lost in guilt and exhaustion. Cole nodded. "You're not alone anymore," he said gently. But trouble was coming. The next morning, someone knocked again, hard this time. It wasn't Bren. It was a group of men in heavy coats, faces twisted with suspicion. One of them pushed past Cole without asking. "We heard you've got something in the shed," he growled. "Something not human." Cole stepped in front of the door. "Don't go near it," he said firmly. The man laughed. "What is it? A breeder? A cast-off?" Cole's fists tightened, but he stayed calm. "She's a mother," he said sharply. "And those are her children." That shut them up, but only for a second. Another man stepped forward, anger rising in his voice. "You hiding freaks now, Cole? You want half-bloods running around here?" Cole didn't move. "If you come near them again," he said in a low voice, "you'll answer to me." The men backed away, muttering threats, but Cole knew they'd be back. This wasn't over. Not yet. He returned to the shed that night, Sari waiting just inside. "They know," he said simply. She nodded, already expecting it. "I leave?" she asked, voice shaking, but Cole shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "You stay with me." And this time, her eyes filled with something new. Not fear, not sadness. Hope. Snow began to fall again. Light at first, then heavier. Cole stood by the shed window, watching the white flakes cover the mining village like a silent warning. He knew the peace wouldn't last. The men from yesterday had already started talking. And once fear spread, it turned into fire inside the shed. Sari carefully dressed her wounded leg, while the children played with pieces of wire and old plastic boxes. The little girl giggled for the first time since Cole had met her. It was a small sound, soft like wind chimes, but to Cole, it felt like sunlight through cold clouds. Sari noticed him watching and spoke gently. "Children, laugh when safe," she said, her voice still slow and broken. Cole smiled. "Then we're doing something right." He brought in more supplies, canned food, clean blankets, even a small lamp powered by solar cells. Sari didn't ask for anything, but he could see the difference in her eyes each day. Less fear, more strength. That evening, while Cole helped set up the lamp, the older child climbed into his lap without warning. Cole froze, unsure at first, but the boy simply leaned against his chest, tiny arms wrapping around him in a clumsy hug. "Da," the child whispered, voice muffled. "Da." Cole's heart stopped. He looked at Sari, who had frozen in place, her hands shaking. "No," she said quickly, almost panicked. No, what mean?" But Cole shook his head. "I know," he said softly. "It's okay." Sari turned away, brushing something from her cheek. "His real father?" Cole asked gently. She sat down slowly, pulling the younger child into her lap. "Gone," she whispered. "Killed by tribe for choosing me." Cole didn't push, but her next words came like a flood. "I'm not good enough for them," she said, voice filled with old pain. "Too weak, too small, wrong blood." She held her child tighter. "They say I shame, so they beat me. Left me with no food, no home." Cole clenched his fists, fury rising in his chest. These weren't just abandoned strangers. They were survivors. "You're not weak," he said firmly. "You're stronger than anyone I've met." Sari looked up, her eyes shimmering. "But children need more," she said. "They need a father, someone to protect." Cole looked at her, then at the children now asleep beside him. "I can protect," he said, the words coming from deep within. "If you let me." Sari didn't answer, not with words, but she reached out, gently placing her hand over his. For her, that was enough. The next day, the storm passed, but something worse arrived. A group of armed villagers stood outside Cole's quarters, shouting. They demanded answers. Demanded to see the creatures he was hiding. "You think we'll let monsters live next door?" One man shouted. "They're not monsters," Cole growled, stepping outside. "They're children." Someone raised a gun. "You'd risk your life for them? For an alien breeder?" Cole didn't blink. "Yes," he said, his voice like steel. "Because they're not the danger you are." The crowd grew louder, angrier. But then a new voice cut through the noise. "Let me speak," Sari said, stepping out from behind the shed. Her hair was tied back, her posture straight, her children clinging to her legs. The villagers stared in shock, seeing her fully formed. "The first time, I come in peace," she said in slow, broken English. "I not fight, I not steal." She pointed to her children. "They just want to live, to laugh." She looked at Cole, then turned back to the crowd. "He not their blood, but he their father." Silence. Even the wind seemed to pause. One old woman near the front lowered her weapon. "A father, you say?" she asked. Sari nodded. "He give food, warmth, love," she said, voice trembling but proud. "Is that not what father does?" Cole stepped forward and stood beside her. "I didn't choose to become a father," he said, "but maybe they chose me." The crowd didn't cheer, didn't shout, but something shifted. They turned and left, some angry, some unsure, but none brave enough to pull the trigger. That night, Sari placed her hand on Cole's chest and whispered something in her language. He didn't understand the words, but the way she looked at him, he understood everything in a world that had left her broken, unloved, and alone. A stranger had stepped in, not as a savior, not as a soldier, but as a father. The village grew quiet the next morning. No more angry shouts. No more threats at Cole's door. But silence did not mean safety. It meant something worse. People were watching, whispering, waiting. And Cole could feel it in his bones, inside. The shed, Sari moved slower than usual. Her eyes darting to the window again and again. She had seen too many false mornings before. Mornings where the danger only hid in shadows, waiting for night to strike. Cole noticed her fear. He handed her warm soup, kneeling beside the children. "They won't touch you," he said, trying to sound strong. But the weight in his voice betrayed him. He didn't believe that anymore, not fully. That afternoon, Bren returned, his face tight and serious. "Cole," he said, "you need to come with me." Cole followed him into the council building. 5 village elders sat at the table, arms crossed, expressions cold. "We've received complaints," the oldest one said. "You're housing undocumented aliens." Cole didn't flinch. "They're not criminals," he replied. "They're a mother and her children, hiding from death." The second elder leaned forward. "They could carry disease, disrupt order, bring danger to our people. They've brought nothing but life." Cole snapped. "They've hurt no one, asked for nothing." One of the elders sighed. "This isn't about hate, Cole," she said quietly. "It's about the law." Cole stood straight, fire in his eyes. "Then maybe the law is wrong." Back at the shed, Sari waited with both children curled beside her. The little one was burning with fever, her skin hot and her breath shallow, when Cole returned. His heart sank at the sight. Without hesitation, he rushed to his medical kit and gave the child fever-reducing medicine. He placed her in a blanket soaked with cool water and held her in his arms. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Please." "Stay." Sari sat beside him, silent tears falling down her face. "This is why we ran," she whispered. "Our kind. Weak when small, many die." Cole didn't care what species they were. This was a child, sick and fighting for life, and he would not let her go without a fight. He stayed up all night, feeding her water drop by drop, wiping her forehead. He sang old songs under his breath, not for her to understand, but to keep himself from falling apart. By sunrise, her fever broke, and she slept peacefully in his arms. Sari placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. "You save her," she said softly. Again, Cole looked up, his eyes tired but filled with fire. "I'll do it every time," he replied, "because she's mine now." But their small victory wasn't enough to hold back what was coming. That evening, as Cole stepped outside to get more firewood, he saw smoke, not from a chimney, but from a torch, held by a man at the edge of the path. Then another torch lit beside him, and another. A line of villagers stood in the snow, fire in their hands, anger in their eyes. Bren ran toward Cole, breathless. "They're not listening anymore," he said. "They're going to burn the shed." Cole stepped between the shed and the crowd, his fists clenched, his boots firm in the snow. "You'll have to go through me," he shouted. The crowd hesitated, but one man stepped forward, torch raised. "You can't stop all of us," he said. "This isn't your family." Then a new voice spoke, strong and clear. "Yes, they are," Sari said, stepping out beside Cole, her arms wrapped around the children, her shoulders straight, her eyes burning with courage. "This man, he feed us, warm us, protect us, love us," she said. "He no ask for thanks, no want gold." She looked at the villagers. "He father, even if he not born them." The torches trembled, hands unsure, and then, from behind the crowd, a small voice rang out. "Cole," the child called, stepping forward in the snow. The villagers turned, stunned to see the tiny figure wobbling forward, arms outstretched. "Cole da." The silence was heavy. Cole bent down and picked up the child, holding her to his chest. "She just wants to live," he said. "Is that a crime now?" The wind blew through the village, and one by one, the torches dropped to the ground. No one spoke, no one fought. The fire they came to burn had already been lit inside the hearts of those willing to protect. They didn't win that night through force, they won through love, and that fire no hatred could ever put out. The next morning, The shed was quiet. Snow still covered the ground, but the tension from the night before had melted just a little. The villagers had walked away, but not all of them were convinced. Some still wanted Sari and her children gone, but others had seen the truth with their own eyes and hearts. Cole stood by the door, staring out at the white horizon. He hadn't slept all night, not from fear but from thinking. They couldn't live like this forever, hiding, waiting for the next knock. It was time to take a stand, not with fists but with words. He walked to the council building that afternoon, Sari walking beside him with the children. They didn't wear coats to hide anymore. They wore courage. Bren met them at the steps, surprised. "You sure about this?" he asked Cole. Cole nodded. "It's time the law sees what love looks like." Inside, the room was cold and silent. 5 council elders sat behind a long metal table. Villagers stood in the back, whispering, watching. The lead elder cleared her throat. "You bring them here?" she asked. "Why?" Cole stepped forward. "I'm here to ask for the right to keep my family," he said. Some gasped, others scoffed. "They're not your family," one man muttered. Cole looked at him, calm but firm. "They didn't come from me, but I care for them. Feed them, protect them," he said. "If that's not family, then what is?" The elder leaned back, folding her hands. "Adopting alien minors is not allowed under human territory law," she said slowly. "Even less so when there's no official record of their origin." Sari stepped forward, holding both children close. Her voice was steady, though her hands trembled. "I not want money, not want home," she said. "I only want place where no one hurt my babies." The elder looked at her, surprised at her bravery. "And this man?" the elder asked. Sari didn't look away. "He give everything," she said. "He sleep cold, so we sleep warm. He fight when we scared. He father to them." The younger child reached out and touched Cole's leg, saying softly, "Da." The word echoed through the room like thunder in still air. A silence followed, heavy and strange. The lead elder looked down, unsure now. "Why risk your life, Cole?" she asked. "You could walk away, let someone else handle this." Cole's answer was simple. "Because no one else will," he said. "And they deserve someone who stays." An old woman from the crowd stepped forward. She held a cane and wore heavy robes. "I lost my son in a war," she said quietly. "He died fighting for peace between species." She looked at the children, then at Sari. "These little ones, they are proof his death meant something." She turned to the council. "Let them stay." More voices rose, some in agreement, some still unsure. But the room had changed. The fire that nearly burned down love now lit the hearts of those once blind. The elder looked around, then sighed. "This council rules." She paused, glancing at Sari and the children. "They may stay under special protection." Sari gasped softly, eyes wide in disbelief. Cole closed his eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. It was done. The papers were signed. A new status granted. Not citizens, not visitors, but something new. Something better, family, by choice, protected by law. Outside, people gathered, some smiling, some nodding respectfully. A few still turned their backs, but most did not. Children stared at Sari's little ones with curiosity, not hate, and Cole walked proudly, not hiding them anymore. At home, Sari stood in the doorway of the new living unit Cole had been assigned. It was small but clean, warm, and safe. She looked around slowly, touching the walls as if making sure it was real. The children ran in, laughing, chasing each other for the first time. Sari looked at Cole, her eyes shining. "We no hide now?" she asked. He smiled. "Not anymore." She placed her hand on his chest gently. "Then I say it now," she whispered. "Thank you for giving us a life." Cole shook his head. "No, Sari," he said quietly. "You gave it to me too." Snow melted slowly under the weak morning sun. Winter was ending, and something new was beginning, not just in the air, but inside the home of Cole and the little alien family he had chosen. The small house was no longer silent, no longer just a shelter. It was alive with laughter, with warmth, and with hope. Sari stood by the window, folding small clothes carefully. Her face looked softer now, her scars no longer reminders of pain, but strength. The children played near the heater, building towers out of old mining parts and giggling when they fell. And Coley was in the kitchen, burning toast again. "I think I'm better at fighting angry villagers than cooking breakfast," he muttered. Sari laughed, a real laugh, not just a breath of relief but a sound full of joy. "You try, that's what matters," she said, taking the toast from him and replacing it with warm bread of her own. They moved like people who had lived together for years, but it had only been weeks, weeks that felt like lifetimes. Cole looked at the two children. They were brighter now, louder, and no longer flinched at shadows or sudden sounds. They called him Day without hesitation, without confusion, like they had always known he was meant to be part of their world. That afternoon, a government worker visited the home. She was kind-faced, wearing a badge that read Cultural Integration and Interspecies Affairs. She had come to finish some final paperwork, nothing major, just one last decision. "They'll need official names," the woman said. "Human systems don't process unregistered names well." Sari looked unsure. She had never chosen names before. Her tribe had done it for her. Now it was up to her. She glanced at Cole, then at the children. She knelt down and spoke softly in her native tongue. The older child smiled and nodded. The younger clapped her hands. Sari turned to the worker and said gently, "Their first names will stay Lari and Miko." The worker smiled. "Lovely names." Then came the harder part. "Do you have a family name to register them under?" Sari paused. She looked at Cole, then back at the woman. "They have no clan," she said quietly. "No tribe." The worker nodded slowly, understanding the pain in those words. "They can take your name," she offered, "or his." She nodded toward Cole. Sari blinked, eyes wide. Cole stood frozen, unsure of what to say. He had never thought of it, not truly. But now, standing there with all eyes on him, he realized he wanted them to carry his name, not out of pride, but out of belonging. He knelt beside the children, his voice low and full of warmth. "Would you like that?" he asked. "To be part of my family for real?" Lari nodded shyly. "Lari Bennett?" She tried, using Cole's last name. Cole smiled, heart full. "Yes, Lari Bennett," he said. "And Miko Bennett, too." Sari placed a hand on his arm. "You sure?" She asked softly. "This changes things." Cole looked at her. "It already changed the day I found you in that forest," he said. "Now it's just official. The papers were signed, and just like that, 3 names now shared one future." Bennett. The worker left, and the sun began to set. Cole sat on the porch, watching the orange sky. Sari joined him, wrapping herself in a soft blanket. The children played in the snow, laughing, calling each other by their new names. "They have future now," Sari whispered. Cole nodded. "They always did," he said. "They just needed someone to protect it." Sari leaned her head on his shoulder. "You gave more than home," she said quietly. "You gave us place to belong." He didn't answer with words. He just held her hand, their fingers locking like pieces that finally fit. The night grew colder, but they didn't feel it. Inside the house, a light stayed on, a lamp glowing beside a nameplate on the wall that read, "The Bennett Family." They were not born together. They were not bound by blood, but they were chosen, protected, and loved. And in a galaxy where the strong survived and the weak were often forgotten, one human had stepped into the storm, not as a hero, but as a father, and that made all the difference.